was ahead of its time. I think people were really surprised, and amazingly, at that time TVNZ wanted things off peak, late night. So it developed into a series. I mean, to be fair, Wayne is a really special character, and he came with his own issues, but certainly Series 1, I think, had a lot of heart. Perhaps as it moved into Series 2, it became a little bit of something else. But ultimately, I think Wayne got an amazing platform, and we would just sort of create a scene for him. Obviously Orlando's in there, and he was part of the team of making it, but he'd give Wayne a scene, and he would just go, and you just didn't know quite what he was going to say. But it was his truth always, and he just wanted to share his love of music, and we could just, I don't know. I used to feel like we looked after him, and we laughed with him, and we talked with him about that a lot. But as I say, perhaps it started to verge off a bit later on into the second series, which moved over to Prime. But yeah, it was a pretty great show. I'm proud of it. Both Worlds is about diversity, ethnic diversity, but from a very Kiwi perspective. Everybody we film is sort of between maybe 18 to 25. I've got a couple that are 30, but they're in that age group where they're honest, they're trying to figure out who they are. Everybody really in some way is facing an identity crisis or question. And they, through their very Kiwi eyes often, can look at the cultural background they come from and critique it, but also talk about the positives. So they can say, these are the things I want to keep alive, my cultural heritage in a New Zealand context. And I think that's what appealed to me. But they are young people, so that also makes it hard because they never return your calls. They're always sort of out. Yeah, just trying to pin them down can be hard, but it's been very gratifying. I feel like after 40 stories, every one of them has said to me, thank you so much. You took me somewhere, you helped me through something, you helped me talk to my parents for the first time properly or whatever. But, it's been a really positive experience. It was an 8-month production. I followed 5 different participants over that period, and I'm pleased to say that 4 of the 5 have now graduated from drug court. But it was pretty interesting, little me rocking up to these guys, and some of them pretty hard out criminals, and it's intimidating. But I had Karina Hunsinger with me, who's an up-and-coming Māori filmmaker, and she's come to filmmaking a little bit later on in her life, but she's a bit tougher than me. So the 2 of us kind of managed it, but it was interesting. But in the end, they became my friends, and they shared pretty deep, intimate aspects of their lives and their struggles in prison and through drug addiction, and hopefully coming out the other side. I think with work like that, I want people just to take a minute to think differently, and not just to assume that somebody who's spent most of their life in jail can't change. I do believe in redemption. On paper, to do Dive was quite ambitious. There's a lot of VFX needed in it. I mean, we did end up doing a lot of the effects in camera, which was cool, and we had some great people around us. But in terms of me and Matthew, on paper, we had no experience at all with any of that. And so we really had to fight to have the Film Commission believe that. I guess it was probably, it was a bit of both of us, like, can he pull that off? How am I going to manage that? But, and we were encouraged to really go for maybe some of the bigger post houses. But in the end, I went with smaller people who I could really communicate with, who could help us. Perhaps it was more complicated because you had different post houses working with us. But I think the most important thing I learned is to always, when you're working in a technical way in post where you don't understand, always be willing to say, I don't understand, can you explain it to me? And to have people who are willing to treat you with the respect to explain it to you, and you don't always get that. I think that's really, really important if you're taking a risk moving into a field that you don't understand. I am very privileged to have been able to tell the Exponents story and now the Dragon story, and hopefully with some more in the pipeline. You know, these are seminal bands. This is our culture here, you know. These are the theme songs of our lives as New Zealanders. Both the Exponents and Dragon have challenging, you know, there's stories that are deeper there about relationships and addiction, but I think the music is so strong, and the way that the music speaks to those stories means you can craft really special pieces. I mean, they're historical stories, so they're archive, music videos, photos, interviews, so they're in that way maybe quite straight, but at Prime Rock's audience, I think they just really want the story. It doesn't need to get too fancy. Arranged as a TV3 series, 6 times 1 hour, so it's quite a substantial amount of TV time. Yet to be delivered, so can't give you an insight into when it's going to go to air. But each episode has 2 couples. We follow them. So I've got some that are engagement stories, some looking, and obviously the big lavish weddings, Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, you know, we've tried to really look at the very different types. But it's ultimately a window into culture through weddings and into the way Kiwi Indians stay committed to their culture, you know, live Kiwi lives but really care so much that they want family involvement in their lives and they want their parents to give them approval. But there's a lot of dancing and there's a lot of money being thrown around and a lot of jewels, and yeah, it's a funny, cute, quirky show. I'm looking forward to it. It's a more reality style for me, which is a bit different, so I've enjoyed doing that. We have made 19 amazing shorts, you know. That in itself has to be applauded, but we have helped those filmmakers to understand the changing face of financing and distribution, and the fact that if they truly want to be documentary makers into the future, making longer form work, having a presence online, understanding audience are the key, absolute key aspects to getting larger projects made. And we've seen the push from the Film Commission and New Zealand On Air really focusing in on audience. So I hope that Loading Docs is playing a big part in helping and upskilling our industry to learn those skills. Who is my audience? How am I going to reach them? What social should I put around it? You know, if I make other work that speaks to that larger work, how can I build a profile for my piece? You know, all that kind of stuff.